everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. So while traditionally our agency places newborns for adoption, our agency has actually seen an increase in folks who are considering placing a child who's already here. Usually they've attempted to parent, whether it's for a few months or a year. We recently placed a 7-year-old. So we've definitely been seeing an increase of people wanting the education and learning more about options after birth. So I'd like to welcome 2 of our social workers to discuss what that process looks like and how we handle that as an agency. So let's welcome Jackie and Katie from our New Jersey office.
Hello.
So you guys recently did a placement for a 3-month-old. Can you talk to our community about the initial call and what that was like to receive a call from somebody who had already been parenting and kind of what that intake process looked like in comparison to somebody maybe who was pregnant and considering adoption?
So I think the intake process itself was pretty similar. The phone call was pretty panicked. The birth mother wanted this placement to happen very quickly. When it comes to an older child placement, we have to sometimes put the brakes on it, right? Because we want to make sure that this is an appropriate transition and placement for everyone that's involved.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice that you say that because I do think that the folks who are calling are the ones who are in panic mode, right? Something's going on and they're feeling this urgency to get help. And as social workers, we have to make sure that this is not just, I'm having a moment, take my baby. We have to go through the options counseling and try to hit the pause button as much as we can to make sure that there's been enough time for them to thoroughly think through that decision.
See if there's any resources available to them within their community that they might need. I think in cases where they've already parented, they've gotten to have that experience, right? Where birth parents who place a newborn directly from the hospital, they might have all of these what ifs. But in cases where you've already parented, you know that you've tried and this is just something that you've thought about and you're trying to do what's best for you and your child, most importantly. It's certainly still not easy because you've had that bonding time. But we're here to kind of help navigate and identify any resources that we can help you with. But if ultimately an adoption plan is what you want to move forward with, that's what we help with.
Sure. And one of the biggest things with us is knowing that there's no pressure and you can change your mind at any point. Katie, can you highlight that piece? Because I know folks who are at home, maybe considering making that call, feel a little uneasy. Like, oh, if I make that call, that's it. I have to move forward with adoption. Like, talk to us about that when it comes to women and men who are already parenting and the idea of calling us knowing what they're going to get.
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely, like Jackie said, we try to take extensive conversations, do options counseling thoroughly because we don't want a rash decision. And ultimately, it's what's best for the child. We just want to talk to them and see, is it something simple as helping them get the resources in the community, like Jackie said, of do you need help with finding jobs? We can help with making applications and things like that. Do you need a ride to get to the welfare office or social security office? How can we better help you? And I know, especially for Jackie and I, because we work in the same office, that when we're having these conversations, we're reiterating multiple times. This is not a permanent decision. Just sitting down and talking with us. Options counseling is the most important thing because in the end, it will be a very permanent decision. So is it a temporary problem or is it something that you are 100% certain that this is the choice I want to make for my child? It is what's best for my child. So we do spend a lot of time before we get to the point of trying to even look at families for their situation before we move forward.
And for folks who are looking for more of an open adoption, can you talk about what options a woman or a man has with openness when it comes to a non-newborn? Is it pretty much the same as a woman or man who is considering adoption earlier on in pregnancy?
Yeah, having openness throughout our agency focuses on openness as a whole, which personally I think is a fantastic thing. And so we give them the option if they choose to have openness, what will that look like? And again, it's not a co-parenting situation because they are making the ultimate decision that they would like to make an adoption plan, but they still have every right to know who the child is, who they become, and also for the child to know this wasn't a hasty decision that was made by mom and dad, and that I still get to see them. They still get to know who I am as I grow up. So they still have all the same options of if it were a newborn situation. Sometimes the child may want to have a couple more Zooms or FaceTime calls with their birth parents.
Or communication with their aunts, or if they had any siblings. Another placement that we worked on was with a 5-year-old younger boy who happened to have twin older brothers, and he had a relationship with his aunt and his aunt's husband. So kind of being open to the idea, which in newborn placements sometimes happen as well, right? Grandparent involvement with PACAs, things like that. But I think in an older child placement, it's more important to kind of recognize the key members in that child's life and who wants to still be kind of a connection point for that child. Now, if the child doesn't want to have communication, but I think that it can look a little bit different sometimes in older child placements with more members being involved.
Sure. And I think it depends also on the age of the child, because of their memories. If the child is 1 or 2, they may not have a connection to the aunt, the uncle, the cousin as the 5-year-old. And it's also important that we don't want to traumatize the child for what they're going through at that point, because either way, this child is going to experience some form of loss. Their family is going to look different. What could be beautiful and extended, but it's still not what they're used to.
Sure. I mean, you girls hit on a lot of important points. I think the idea of extended family is a key point to this concept of openness. I do find that with non-newborn placements, the level of openness tends to be a little bit stronger, because the reality is, if you've been parenting a child for 3 months or a year or 5 years, there's connections there.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that we want to make sure that our adoptive families that are signing up for this recognize that we want to keep those relationships as much as we can, right?
And we'll honor that.
Yes.
And we'll honor that connection.
Yeah. And I also think it's important with the intake process and the education that we give to the birth parents, we try to extend that to family members as well.
Yes.
I was working on a placement where a grandparent was involved, and I think that grandparent was a little iffy about the birth parent making this plan. But then once they actually met with the social worker, sat down, received the education, learned about open adoption, they were able to become more aware and ultimately supported their family member in choosing adoption for their child. So I think as an agency, as social workers, we want to try to extend that education out as much as we can, especially for non-newborn situations, because they've also been around that child.
Absolutely.
Right? So we've got to think about that. Talk to us, Katie, about post-placement supervision. People often think that it's like, okay, I give you my baby and then that's it. You place the child for adoption and then everything's done. What does life look like for that child moving forward after placement has occurred, and the role that the agency plays?
So you don't get rid of us, especially in the beginning before finalization. We come, and if the child is over 5, we are doing home visits every month until finalization occurs. During that time, we are talking with the adoptive parents, seeing how they're handling having a non-newborn, how if there's any extra stressors because of the behaviors that a child may be having, if there's any health concerns that the older child may be experiencing, do they need more support? How can I help them? Then separately, I will go and speak with the child and ask the child, what's your favorite thing that you're doing with this family? How are things going? Just so that the child has a safe space. Because even though, like I said earlier, this is a change. They had one mother, father, or legal guardian, whomever it is that was raising them, and now someone completely different is. In the one case, the child is 7, she's adjusted really well and has really bonded to them. So it's been amazing to see. But not all placements are like that. It's a lot of us sitting and talking and tell me how your feelings are. Not so much a therapy session, but more of getting to know them and seeing how they are. We do some arts and crafts. She rode her bike for the first time in front of me, roller skated, things like that. We bond. And so I think for the agency, that's actually probably one of my favorite parts, is to see the children after the fact and see the family actually form, because you can see from the very first day of, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm so nervous, to by the 6th month, 8-month mark, they've formed. They can't imagine life without each other. So, but still knowing that we're here. I'm still constantly checking in. How are you doing? Can I help you with anything? Even past when the court finalizes the adoption.
Sure.
So we don't leave.
Well, and it's kind of like reassurance. So if I'm a birth parent or even a legal guardian who has had custody of a child for so many years, that's scary,
Yes.
right? I'm handing over my child to people who, yes, your agency's saying that they're approved and they're good people, but I don't know them. How do I know that they're going to do well by my child? And having the post-placement supervision reinforces that, because we not only meet with the child, meet with the family, but we also receive medical reports from their pediatrician, make sure the child's still thriving and moving forward and doing things accordingly. And that's significant. If something were to be going wrong or inappropriate, we would step in and come back to you as the birth family to kind of readjust and figure out a new plan if necessary. It doesn't really happen very often, but good to know that that's in place, and we would come back to you as the biological family.
Yeah, we're constantly reassessing. The whole thing is an assessment process, and just making sure that the child will always be, and I say this a lot, what is always my priority. I care more about this child and their health and safety and well-being than pretty much anything else in this aspect.
Sure. So Jackie, as somebody who has recently taken that call from a woman who was considering placing a 3-month-old, what would you say to folks at home who have been struggling? Kid is maybe 5 months old or 2 years old, and they're maybe considering this, but they're like, I don't know if that's for me. What would you say to them right now?
Call us, go on our website, go on YouTube, watch videos, just talk to us. We understand that this is a scary time. I'm certain we're not here to judge you. We're here to help you. We're here to help you, guide you, educate you. Education is powerful, and sometimes there's a lot of misunderstanding around what adoption is, and we're just here to explore your options.
And know that you're not alone. So many people are feeling the way that you're feeling. Like, we are living in a really tough world right now, especially financially, right? Things are not the way that they used to be. And I can respect that if you as a parent took child out of that hospital and tried to parent for such and such amount of time, that's great. But if you still feel in your gut, this isn't right, I want better for my child, it's worth picking up the phone and calling us. Doesn't mean you have to do adoption. It just means that you want support, and you have a team behind you that will be there for you. I also want to input the fact that we do have a birth parent support group, which is phenomenal, and it's a great safe space for you to connect with other women who have placed a child, specifically non-newborn children. There's women on that call that placed a 5-month-old, and they're able to share with you what it's like to actually move forward and what life is like after placement. So talk to them. We can connect you if you want to just text or video call with someone specifically. We have a ton of options, a ton of resources, so feel free to reach out to us and make that call.
Absolutely.
Well, ladies, this has been very helpful. Anything else you want to share just in general about what we've seen as an agency with non-newborns?
Be patient. We have to be patient. It's a transition, right? We're gonna maybe do overnight visits. It's gonna be a little bit of a longer process, but we're gonna do whatever is best for you, whatever is best for the child. We're gonna make it happen, but just know that we're gonna do it the right way, the correct way, so everything is done properly for you and the child.
And just that it's a roller coaster of emotions on both ends, and even for the adoptive parents as well, because sometimes that that's hard to take in a child that is older, that has behavioral or possible health issues, which is why the birth parents were making this selfless decision. And also sometimes things might not work out the way that you had hoped originally. So again, be patient, lean on people, look for help, get the resources that you need.
Wonderful. Wonderfully said. No two situations are ever the same, but just know that you have a team behind you here that is going to navigate it, work together to make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of all the children that come through our door. So thank you guys so much. Continue to tune in, and we appreciate your support.